guys, we're back live again with a fifth Ask a Pianist Q&A live, and we have this mirrored problem with the camera, which is not fixed, unfortunately. Hopefully, we'll get that fixed for next time. It's been quite an ordeal, I must say. I've scoured the internet to find a solution to it, and it seems like I'm the only one having that problem, which is a little strange. But anyway, so it's going to be like that for today, but hopefully, it doesn't make much of a difference because everything in the right hand, so, this is my right hand, but for you, it looks like my left hand. So, this is going up. So, but everything in the right hand is the same thing mirrored in the left hand. So the technique is exactly the same. And we're going to start by, I'm just going to answer a question I had last night by my Polish friend. I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm quite sorry. It was about when to move on to different etude. Hi, Daniel. For example, working on a certain Czerny etude, and we're working on it for a long time. At what point do you go and move on to something else, or do you like keep using this piece as an etude? And that's an interesting thing. It's a good idea to have certain pieces. If you have a certain piece that's really good to help you just like get into a certain thing, like rotation, for example. Mine, the one I'm always playing that you probably hear me play, was this Bach Prelude and Fugue. So I always come back to that as a sort of etude. It's not an etude, but just because since I worked on it so much in that piece, then if I'm doing something else, I can always come back to that and know exactly what I'm doing. Same thing, I guess, would go for, let's say you're doing A flat opus 25 number 1 Chopin etude. Well, you can come back to this a lot. So find the balance between the two. It's good to move on and go do different studies. I would say, like in general, like in a traditional sense, you should be doing at least one a year. But if you're faster, you probably do two. And if you're quite advanced, then you could probably do, you know, it'd be hard to count at that point, but you could probably do like six etudes in a year. That would be at a really advanced level. But yes, it's always good to come back to them, and it can also be advantageous to put them aside and go back to them to review whatever technical aspect it is that you're exploring in those things. So, hi everyone. Let's get those questions rolling. So the schedules are now public for the Q and A's. I think that's been clear. Hi, Robert. Hey, fire away. Do you think you need to learn every piece 100%? Nah. Like it's the thing. Here's the tricky thing with that is probably I think most people it's actually hard to learn a piece 100%. So if it's something you never do, that's really problematic because you do need to actually go through this phase. When you first start learning a piece, it's like super easy and it's so fun. And then in the next part of learning a piece, eventually you reach a point, kind of let's say a plateau. It's maybe not exactly how I would describe it, but you reach a point where you're just like sick of playing the same thing and you want to give up. And you kind of have to break through that point. Uh, Usually around the time that you're like you're going into the automation phase. So you have the cognizing phase where you're learning to read the notes and find out everything that's there. Maybe do a little analysis and figure out what the chords are, some of the harmony, but really like reading the notes and learning what the piece is. Then you have this phase of assimilating all of that, like memorizing the music, which is long and tedious and difficult. And usually that's where you feel like giving up because at this point you're getting sick of practicing the same thing. But when you go past that stage, once you've memorized it, or even if you don't memorize it, you reach the phase of automation where things start to become automated. You don't have to think so much about all the tiny little details. It's more a question of putting the whole thing together. And that's a pretty fun place to be. So if you're the kind of person that just like gives up, like, I don't feel like going through it, then it's really important to go through. However, you don't have to learn everything that way. You know, like, for example, you can learn some Chopin etudes and practice parts of them, and like just the beginnings of them, and that can be very, very beneficial. So yeah, that's my take. I wouldn't get too intense. I think some people maybe they're a little like, I have to learn it completely before doing anything else, and that's a little extreme. You know, it's not necessary. So you know, finish what you start. Robert says, you mentioned you love Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit. I've listened to it quite a bit and I've never been able to hear its beauty. Nice. Care to explain what I'm missing? Yeah, that's great. Okay, this is something that has fascinated me for a long time. I think because I was exposed to classical music by my father, who loved classical music. But when I say he loved classical music, and it's still the case, it was really classical, Baroque and classical, and things like Prokofiev and Ravel especially. It's just like he can't hear what's nice in it, and I can relate to that because I felt the same way at first listening to Prokofiev, you know, and Ravel as well. I think maybe a little bit less, but I remember listening to this music and finding that it sounds like so atonal. And then after hearing it several times, you said you listened to several times. You listened to it quite a bit. Okay, interesting. So it's really a fascinating thing. After you're exposed to the music more and more, all of a sudden you get it. It's like a language you didn't understand that now you understand it. So it's the same thing. If I hear someone speaking German and I can't hear German, all I hear is what sounds to me like gibberish, but it's because I don't understand the language. Then when you start learning a little bit of the language, all of a sudden, if any of you have ever learned a language, you've had this experience where you know you learn a few words, this and that. Maybe it was Spanish in your case, and then all of a sudden you hear Spanish, and then, uh, I understand. It's actually something. Yes, experience of Beethoven's seventh sonata. Interesting. Okay, that's Beethoven back in the day was considered really avant-garde music. So they used to stick his music kind of like in between things, kind of like the way we do with contemporary music today. You know, we'll like throw in a little contemporary music in between more like operas and like maybe operatic overtures and things that people know very well. So people get used to hearing it, and that was the case with Beethoven back then. So imagine. So Ravel, I'm really curious. I was never able to get there with my dad, which kind of pissed me off because I always wanted to share that passion I had for his music, and as well as Prokofiev and things like that. And he's never quite gotten there. So, but I think he had kind of made up his mind that this music is garbage. So if you make up your mind, good luck. I think the first thing is to be open to it, to be open that there's some beauty here that I do not hear yet, and that's normal. I had this experience as well with the Barber, Samuel Barber. If any of you guys know Samuel Barber, this is an amazing American composer I love. Someone had recommended that I play the piano sonata, which he wrote, only one piano sonata, and I thought that maybe they had recommended that it would be a good piece for me to play in competitions and things like that. So I listened to it, and again, I had this kind of openness to it, and I listened to it the first time, and I was like, okay, this is going to take some getting used to. But after you start to especially work on the pieces, Robert, my suggestion would be to learn some simple Ravel pieces. As for Gaspard La Nuit, I mean, we could go into the details of this piece of why it's so incredible, but the best is, yes, to listen to things, come back to it, listen to it, don't give up on it, listen to it many times. Again, there's so many ideas coming to mind. I remember listening to Prokofiev's first violin sonata. The first time I listened to this piece, I was like, what the heck? How can people even call this, like, how can you even listen to this? Like, I couldn't listen to more than 5 minutes, you know? And recently I played it, and since then I had played a lot of Prokofiev, and I think it's one of my favorite pieces by Prokofiev. It's so beautiful. So eventually you learn the language of the composer, the harmonic language, and it actually starts to make a lot of sense. There's a lot of coherency in it, and I promise you, it will bring you to tears in a good way. So that's, yeah, Prokofiev. And what else did I want to say with that? I guess that's about it. That's something I wanted to talk about. I was actually hoping someone was going to bring that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Robert. That's really something. Maybe find some easy Ravel, and start to get used to him a little bit. Okay, maybe an easier thing to probably start listening to is listen to the violin sonata, the G major violin sonata. I think this is one of my favorite pieces of all time. So this piece is just so beautiful. Again, I played it for my dad, and he had the worst things to say about this piece. So that's again coming from someone who does not understand the language Ravel is speaking 0%. So, but I think it might be a little easier to understand than the other stuff. There's also a kind of expressiveness in this sort of impressionist music that's different. It's expressing itself sometimes through effects. So it's not, I remember someone saying this once. It's not always expressive in the same way that you're used to classical music being expressive. It's more of like some kind of effect or place that it brings you, like you smell a flower, and you have some wave of something. So, but probably listening also to Debussy would help, I would assume, with that sort of thing. Oh, here's a cool question. How do you overcome depressive thoughts and moods? Because I think each pianist experiences it once in a while. Do you mean expressive thoughts and moods in music that you find to be like really like dark music, or is it something that's more like depressive thoughts about like being a pianist and playing music? I'm guessing it's the former you're asking. Maybe you can just clarify on that. But I'm going to answer a little bit the former. So that would be like dark moods. Oh, being a pianist. Okay, all right. Well, let me answer that then. Um, how to overcome depressive thoughts about being a pianist. Boy, man, being a musician, yeah, that's really something. I guess, one thing to consider is I don't know what you're at, what level you're at, and what kind of music you're playing, but we're so lucky to be able to play the instrument to begin with. So there's so many people who would be jealous to be able to do what you can do. So that's one thing to consider. And I think when you think of that, that's something that's helped me because I tend, in the past anyway, I was maybe complaining about some things about how like things were really difficult to do. And in the end, when you realize how you're actually really lucky to be able to play some really amazing music, it just puts a little bit of gratitude into what you're doing. So I think there's a lot of value in that. Um, there's something also, I tend to agree that it's a very difficult thing to do to play music. So it's difficult in the sense that it requires so much of you. It takes um, there's an intellectual side to it. You need to know the right styles of the pieces, how to read music, know how to read all this stuff. From an intellectual point of view, there's also an affective side. So that's the emotional side, the way you play the music, and you need to know how to use that. What kind of atmosphere do we use for this? What kind of atmosphere do we want to create, or what kind of emotions are in the music? Then you have the spiritual side as well, because you're a mediator between the composer and the audience. So you have to find a way of, connecting yourself to that. Then you also have a physical side. You need to be in shape to play the piano as well. So that's a lot of things. If you're an accountant, you have to count numbers, and it doesn't matter if you're like your physical and spiritual and emotional side. That's not really important. You're only dealing with one of those aspects. So so undeniably, it's a difficult profession, or even as an amateur, or someone who does it as a hobby, it's a difficult thing to get all those things to work together. That having been said, I think there's a lot of value in not complaining about your job. Let's say if this is your job, or even if it isn't, because there's just I just don't think it helps to complain about it. So it's good to bring those things up, that the way you feel about it and the difficulties that might be there, but maybe also consider if the way you complain about it is if there's actually a use in it, if there's something good. If you find a use in it, then great, go ahead and complain, and maybe find some time to complain between like other musicians about stuff, like and maybe talk about that. Um, Let me think about how I overcome that, because that's definitely something I've faced. There's many times where I just felt like quitting, because there was so many aspects that were challenging to deal with, like being stressed all the time performing. So yeah, I think, just the gratitude, that's what I would say. That's one of the best things, is to be grateful for what it is that you're able to do. Yeah, the gratitude. Uh, Just Hang says, "Can you give us more examples of drawer technique?" Sure, yeah, let's look at that a little bit. Drawer technique. Well, sometimes it's a bit confusing because look, I have some drawer technique right in front of me. I think. Okay, so this is the thing. Sometimes it's confusing if it's drawer technique or rotation. I wouldn't really feel comfortable doing that with a drawer very well. Feels more like a rotation. So drawer, the best example ever is Chopin Opus 10, number 7, I think. But I've already given that one in one of the videos. I think there's a good example here in this Beethoven, at the end of Beethoven Fourth Piano Concerto. Let's see, those are the cadenzas. You know where you have this thing here. So that's where, where you have. At the end of the third, here you would use drawer. That's a very good place to use drawer. So again, you're going in on the thumb and out here. So you can exaggerate it a lot by doing this in the beginning. Exaggerate it in the beginning. But in the end, you want to find just that sweet spot where you're just like going like that. So that's a very good example there. I'm gonna have kind of where am I using this now? This is a tough one. Drawer, like, we don't have this so often. It's not something you do have that often, and again, it gets confused with rotation a little bit. But I just want to look at here. I think I have 2 scores for this. Let's see. Oh, that's probably it. Somewhere in Rock 3, where I was using rotation, that was giving me a really hard time. I was using drawer and then switched to rotation. This is Rock 3, yeah. It was in the 3rd movement. Right, okay, now I remember where this is. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know if this is a good example. I haven't played it in a while now, so. But here, I can't remember if the drawer was helping or not here. But see, this is clearly a rotation place, because you have this kind of rotation. So, but at the same time, you do have 1, 2. No, then see, it's 2, 1. I don't know if that was the place I was thinking. This is not a good drawer example, I'm sorry. So yeah, that Beethoven one is a good example. I'd have to come up with more. You know, we talked about Schumann toccata. That's a very good example. So you know, if any of you are wondering what the heck is this drawer thing, well, look at the videos. Probably in the Essential Piano Technique tutorial playlist. There's one. I don't think the Schumann one is, but the other two are, where we talk about the Chopin Opus 10 number 7. That's probably the best example. I'm gonna have to like keep my eye open for those drawer things. It's not something you have all the time, but especially when you have, you know, these things alternating between 2 and 1, going in and out. Pianist Simon. Hi, Simon. Sometimes when I play, sometimes my playing becomes uneven. Example, my notes don't have equal length. And I find it hard to combat this. Equal length, you mean the length of the notes. So you play like a triad, let's say a third, and you let go of one before? I find it, or is it a rhythmical thing? I find it hard to combat this. What is your advice with this? My playing becomes uneven. My notes don't have equal length. I don't think that's a release thing. You mean you don't release the notes at the same time? Or I think it's a rhythmical thing, what you're saying. Could you just clarify if that's a rhythmical thing? I see you wrote yep, but I don't know which of the few things I said there. I'm guessing it's because some notes are shorter, so you know, if, for example, instead of going, you end up something like that, dum ba dum ba dum bum. If that's the problem, maybe just clarify that for me. Is that a rhythmical problem like that? Exactly that. Okay. I'm guessing this is in fast passages. Let me know if this is something in fast passages or slow passages. If it's in fast passages, probably the best thing you can do is start subdividing and putting, let's take an example. We're going to pull out here Beethoven Opus 111. Wrong binder. Get another binder. So let's take out Beethoven Opus 111 to look at this. And I'll just give you an example of what you can do with this. Bach, Barber, Beethoven. We'll find it. Here it is. So let's say you have this sort of thing. I haven't played that in a while either, but okay, so when you do this, probably, let's say if you're having this problem here, you might be doing something like this. So we're kind of putting a sort of emphasis on the first and third beat, let's say, you know, could be something like that. So what happens is the notes on the first and first beat are probably together. So what you can do is start to subdivide smaller. Put a little emphasis on every beat. This is not a musical thing. It's not saying that this should be played this way. It's a question of getting the notes to be as equal as possible. It sounds like an accent, but it's more like, what I'd like to get to eventually is that we should put them on every eighth notes. So it's going to be like this. Something like that. So something like that. And then maybe gradually get it faster, but you should really feel the na 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 inside these 16th notes. That's going to make already look, I just buried this out, but let's see the difference it makes. Not quite there yet, but you can see that it already makes a difference from, just practicing like that. Eventually you might come to something like that. See, what the way we would probably phrase this is something like that. So the way we phrase the music has nothing to do with this sort of practice. It's just a question of establishing exactly every eighth note where those notes are. That would probably help that problem. Now, if you give me a specific example of where you're having that, if I have the music, I might be able to address your problem even a little more precisely. I'm currently working on Bach's C minor prelude, book 1 or book 2. I'm guessing that's. And having trouble when I pick up the speed. I'm always the slightest bit of with my left hand. I'm always the slightest bit late, I guess, with your left hand. A little bit off. Okay, I get it. A little slight bit off with your left hand. Okay, well, that's a very similar thing, actually. You can do a very similar practice. So instead of going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, start to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3. Practice like this. Yeah. And then you can gradually get a little faster. The other thing that's going to help is the technique, obviously. So you have bum, 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 bum here with the rotation and not with the fingers. That's probably going to help you play more in the left hand, because if you're going like this, then it's very tiring for the hand, and it's also very disconnected and not very fun to do. So if you're using the rotation, that's making your job a little easier. So the left hand's going to be a little better. But this sort of practice, again, that's very similar. It's almost like this unison thing we just saw. So try that and see how that works. Yeah, the Schubert B flat. Okay. Hi Mario. Okay, we're gonna come back a little bit. I just want to finish with Simon here. This Schubert B flat. Yeah. Well, that's this one. Yeah. Oh, that's E flat. See, I lost my score to the Schubert impromptus. I can't find it anymore. Is that the first impromptu? Yeah, again, I'm sorry about that. I just don't know what happened to those scores. So I either have to print them out or buy them because I don't have them anymore, the Schubert scores. Somehow they seem to have disappeared. These things happen. Thank you for answering. May I also ask, what is the speed of your internet? Because the quality of your stream is very good. Glad to hear that. Sorry, I know it's not piano related. I have a 25 megabits a second, 10 megabits upload. So I think it's the upload one that's probably important on this. And that works very good. I actually had an old internet connection, which it's a DSL or ADSL rather. And so it's not cable, but I had the lowest connection for years, and then I found out when I upgraded that it ended up being the exact same price. I just had to ask them to do it because my thing was so old. So yeah, but get a 10 megabits upload. That probably makes all the difference. Any value in practicing with the eyes closed? Well, absolutely. I think that's really good because it forces you to grope the piano, kind of like a blind person is groping to feel where is the light switch, or they're probably better an actual blind person than this. But if your eyes are shut, the way you grope and you look for things, so this is helping you feel the information that's here coming to you. So there's two things happening. There's the information there that's coming here, and something also from you that you're putting into the instrument. That's the really obvious one. But there's also something here, some tactile information that you're getting from your fingers, where you are on the keys, and that's very important to develop. So practicing with your eyes closed is very good. It can also usually here's the thing. I often ask my students to play things with their eyes closed, and they're always like, "Nah, I don't want to do that because I won't be able to." But they always surprise themselves that they're able to do it. So I think you just have to do it, and you will surprise yourself. You're better than you think at this sort of thing. You know, let's take, we've got this in front of Beethoven 111. That would be a tough song to do with the eyes closed, but there has to be some value in that. See how I missed it 3 times and then I got it? Well, that's really good, because if I missed it 3 times and then I got it, now I'm probably going to get it subsequent times in a row with my eyes shut. I might miss it a few more times. See, now most of the time I'm getting it, maybe 4 times out of 5. So that's really good, because I was missing it a few times. It's going to be that much better with my eyes open, right? So this sort of thing is extremely useful. When you're going to these little practices that are making things more challenging and you have little mistakes, it's becoming harder, that's excellent. That's great. It's kind of like weeding your garden. You're finding weeds to pull out that are preventing you from being able to play it with, let's say in this case, with your eyes open in the first place, which is usually how we play. Eventually, if it's something that's not so hard, like let's say you're playing Chopin Barcarolle, maybe you would have your eyes shut. Not that Chopin Barcarolle is an easy piece, but let's say for this this section, or something like this. Sometimes you listen more when your eyes are shut as well. It's like shutting down one of the senses is opening up something more in another one. So there's also some value to that. So, but that could be more like playing your whole piece with the eyes shut. So yeah, try it out. Let me know how it goes. Do you have some fingering suggestions for the ascending sixths at the end of Chopin Nocturne Opus 27, number 2? Let's see. Chopin Nocturne Opus 27, number 2. Okay. The sixths at the end. Ah, yeah. Well, let me know what edition you have. We'll see if we have the same thing, because I have a Dover edition which has some fingerings. Let's see what they are. Okay, I only have them for the first group, but it's the same thing. I don't really like it. I'd have to look at that for a little while, to be honest. You can start with a 2. That might be an idea, because then you can go 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a bit more. But then here, that's hard to go up from, so maybe that's... It actually doesn't work so well. What I naturally do. Sometimes when looking for fingerings, it helps to work a bit from the end. So in this case, I like what I just did at the end. I would have a 1-5. It's different here. Sometimes, okay, maybe you noticed here sometimes what I'm doing is sliding from one finger to another. So let's say you attack it with a 5 and then switch to a 4. Now, that's not necessarily the best thing, but it might naturally happen. If you have a habit of doing it, you might naturally do that. It opens up more possibilities for fingerings. See, I like this 5-3, 5-3. But coming from 5 here is kind of difficult. But see, I think this is the problematic place because this is uncomfortable either way. So see, what would be ideal is to have 3-4. But nothing, it's hard to perceive that. Okay, here's an idea. What did I just do? 3, 4. You could do 4, 1-4, 2-5, 1-3, 1-4. That's a little different than doing this. So 1-4, 2-5. Start with that 1-4, 2-5, and then pass the 3 over 3-1, 1-4, 1-4, and then the same thing. Okay, that's what I would put. I'm gonna write it in right away. Won't have to do that one again. So 1-4, 2-5, or 5-1, 4-1, 5-2. Let's say we do it that way. 4-1, 5-2, and then 3-1. That's the magic part. 3-1, 4-1. Then you can go with what they have in Dover. So 5-2, 4-1, or maybe 3-1. Now do what they have so that you can do 4-1, 2-5, 4-1, 2-5 again. So 4-1, 2-5, 3-1, 4-1, 2-5, 4-1, 2-5, 4-1, 2-5, 3-1. See how that works. That might be good. It's a lot of 4-1, 5-2 going back from, but sometimes also 5-2 and 4-1. So there you have it. There's your pattern. 4-1, 5-2, 3-1, 4-1, 5-2, 4-1, 5-2, and then it repeats. Let me know how that works. Hi, Sharif. Sorry to ask this question in French, but my English is not good enough. Qui étudie-t-on à l'université de musique? Je voudrais en faire, mais j'en ai aucune connaissance en théorie musicale. What do we study? So the question is, qui étudie-t-on? What do we study in a university when we're doing a music degree? I would like to learn, je voudrais en faire, mais j'ai aucune connaissance en théorie musicale. I would like to do it, but I don't have any music theory background. Je sais seulement déchiffrer. So I only know how to read music. Donc, est-ce que j'ai besoin de connaître la théorie musicale et le solfège pour aller à l'université de musique? Do I need to know musical theory and ear training and solfège? Solfège, I guess we call that ear training in order to go to university. It's going to help a lot. You are going to study that in university. You'll have a placement exam. Do you live in Montreal, Sherif? Where do you live? Are you in France? Because there's some amazing teacher at the University of Montreal who will teach like a preliminary course if you're not quite up to level. C'est sûr que le plus de solfège et théorie que tu vas faire, ça va t'aider vraiment à aller à un niveau universitaire. So the more solfège and ear training and kind of stuff you do if you want to go to university and study music, that's really going to help. In Tunisia, nice. Okay, you like to study in France. So there's different programs. I don't know how they teach in France and where your level needs to be, but probably the best thing to do would be to inquire and probably get a tutor who would start to teach you some ear training and theory and this sort of thing. You could probably self-teach yourself a lot, especially on YouTube, because there's so much there, but also with a book maybe where you just like do some exercises. Eventually though, you want to have someone, play you something, un dictée musicale, so where someone will play some notes and you have to actually like write down what they played. Maybe you only have like the first and the last and a couple of notes in between, and you have to fill in. So for sure, if you want to go to university and you have zero ear theory, time to start learning. That's for sure. Time to start learning. I wouldn't get discouraged by it. I would just do it, learn it, because it's really interesting, and once you get into it, you're probably going to have a lot of fun learning all this theory. But I suppose that to go a little further into your question, you don't have to be an expert. But if you don't know anything at all, then it would be good to have a little bit of experience and knowledge about that for sure. Simon says, thank you, Simon. I'm happy that answered your question. Please don't worry, you couldn't find your score. Yeah, I wish I had it. It kind of upsets me because I had it for so many years. I had done this Schubert impromptu. I think it was A minor. That's not even the right key. So it's D flat or something. I can't remember. Maybe that's the one you're talking about. No, I don't know anyway, but I did this as an audition to the conservatory when I was 14 years old. It's an old book I have, but I don't know where it went. Hi, Mikhail. Is it Mikhail or Michal? Again, I love your last name. I think I can actually say it. I'm going to hopefully impress you or embarrass myself. Szczecieszkiewicz, yeah? You mentioned the Marc Durand opening closing thing last time. Care to elaborate? Opening closing thing? I've been experimenting with the technique in Chopin 10-1. Oh yeah, okay, opening and closing the hand. Was that? Yeah, I think Marc Durand did talk about that. I could see it being helpful in shifting position. Also in crazy arpeggios in Mephisto Waltz. Nice. I've been looking for a way to take the tension off my thumb. So thoughts on how to go about it. Okay, let's see. Shifting position. Okay, let's elaborate that on 10-1. I don't think I have Mephisto Waltz here. That would be really cool to look at. Yeah, the thumb can be a problem because, yeah, again, this is again something Marc Durand would always say. The thumb is different from the rest of the hand. So usually when the thumb has to play, we're having to adjust the rest of the hand a little bit. So the rule, so to speak, for the thumb is to get it out of the way. So once you play the thumb, get it out of the way. So let's say in this case, I don't know if that would apply very well for this one, but again, you do have this sort of, if you look at where you're going here from the fifth finger to the thumb, the hand ends up being closed this much in an etude where you're widening the hand to a large degree, playing a tenth. So this movement is happening, this sort of opening and closing the hand. That's for sure. See, we're finishing with the thumb. So the thumb is playing anyway, and we have to bring the fifth finger there in very little time. So the hand is going to slowly close and then open up very rapidly again. So once the thumb is finished playing, that's it. We can reopen the hand. Sorry. I feel going up, this is more helpful to think about somehow. Let's see. There still is a closing of the hand happening though, going down. Maybe that's just something I should look at more, but yeah, for sure, it can help also coming down. Another example of this in remember doing this recently in Chopin Third Sonata, second movement. Some similar thing. Let me see if I can find that again, where we would open and close the hand. Where was that? I think it was somewhere in there, or maybe. Not so much here. I don't remember exactly where. Oh, I don't remember where this was. I think it was in this. Well, there's definitely some places where this is happening in there. But yeah, we'll stick with the Opus 10 number 1 example is probably better for this. But you do have a lot of that. So, and getting the thumb out of the way, that's going to help a lot for the rest of the hand because of the natural shape of the hand. So have a look at that. Crazy arpeggios in Mephisto Waltz. I'd have to look at that again. It's probably a similar sort of thing. Would you use the wheel technique for the right hand arpeggios in Bach's Prelude C major? And if so, would the wheel only go anti-clockwise? Okay, good question. Very good question. Okay, so very simple piece, but this is a very good question. First of all, yes, we would use the wheel. So see, so this is the anti-clockwise movement, where the third finger is lower. You know, we're lower on that, and then you're kind of bringing the fifth finger up. See, now the thing is, there's no only going one way with the wheel. So see, between here, the top note and the bottom note, that's the other half of your wheel. So you're going down here and then back like that. So when you go here, that's the other half of the wheel. This is a very good question. You're just doing the top part faster. So it looks kind of like this. G, C, E, G, C, E. So see the part where you're playing the notes is slow and then you're coming back over. So see, that's why we call it a wheel, because it's going around. So even if you're doing something like this, you still have this wheel. Try to feel that circular motion that's happening here. Eventually it feels like the notes are just playing by themselves. So the third finger is the lowest, and the thumb isn't necessarily high, you know, the thumb is about medium on its way coming down. The fifth finger is probably higher than the thumb, but they're kind of similar. See if you had, now you have a full wheel. So you see that these fingers are in between, and this one is down. I'm going to do a few more questions and I got to run. Thanks for asking all these questions. You guys are awesome. Especially Daniel Awesome, because his name is awesome. I've started composing again after a couple of months, but I keep getting writer's block. Wow, man. Well, I can relate to that. I'm hoping if you figure a way to get over that, let me know. You know, I composed a little bit, and here's how I felt for the very little time I've put into it, is that when I was trying to compose something that was almost like ridiculous, that wasn't really like trying to compose some kind of masterpiece that's going to be like really good, I actually ended up writing the best things that I wrote. So, and then whenever I was like, yeah, I'm gonna write something really good, you know, it was just like, nothing good ever came out. So I don't know if that helps, but that's definitely how I felt about it. When I get back into it, I think that's the attitude I'm going to take from now on. I'm just going to try to write like ridiculous things, and I think probably once you have the habit of writing, it's probably going to get easier and easier and more natural to actually like get into your flow, so to speak. You know, where you actually being creative in the way you want to be. Can't try the fingering for the Nocturne at the moment. We'll do it later. Okay, yeah, let me know how it goes. B flat is the variations from the second set. Aha, okay. Hmm. It's Mike? Okay, Mike. Uh, Shies, like chair in French. Shies. Kiev, like Ukraine. Aha. And itch, like itchy and scratchy. Nice. Shaiskiewicz. 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 Okay. Yeah, the B flat with the variations. Okay, yeah. Those are beautiful. See, I can get them on my iPad, but I'm using the iPad for streaming, which might change. Hi, Rohan. Which notes should be emphasized during the 19th note run at the beginning of Liszt Transcendental Etude number 1? I live in Montreal. Liszt Transcendental Etude number 1. Okay, where are those etudes? Here in Rhapsodies. They're here. Oh, here they are. Okay. Which note or notes should be emphasized? Yeah, okay. Well, it's kind of nice to do this sort of thing. Uh, there's definitely many possibilities here, right? So he writes rinforzando, which means probably something like instead of going to do more something more like that. So that's kind of a rhythmical thing. But usually, what's really nice is when we have a wave go through this run or scale or arpeggios, whatever it is, and we put it usually around the second quarter. So maybe that sounds like if you divide it into three, it would be on the beginning of the second third, something like that. Maybe the beginning of second quarter. So somewhere a little after the beginning. So it starts. See how exciting that sort of thing is, rather than doing only on the top, which is possible, it's feasible. But again, this I think is more interesting. This sort of thing. That was maybe a little late. What's kind of challenging, I don't know if you know, the thing that it seems clear that we want to do is to go reach the first few notes. So you could reach the first few notes. So that would be, I think, the way I would do it. And again, now we were talking about using the lower body, so this is such a nice example, you know. We should do another video on this. If you're using this again, if this is coming in during that descent, so again, it's a tilt of the axis of the pelvis this way. Again, this has to be well aligned, so you can come back to this sort of exercise, elongating the spine. We just did uploaded a video on this, guys, so you can have a look at that. And now, the way you tilt that and move in is going to distribute more weight into what you're doing. So it's going to sound even better than trying to do it artificially. Never try to do it artificially. Try to do it with your body, with as much of your body as possible. And it's not going to happen if you're crooked in the spine like this. It's not going to work. There's some things you can do like that, but in general, it's not very good. You can distribute the weight very well with a straight spine. You can even come back a little bit here while you're tilting again in the pelvis forward. So I hope that answers your question. That along with, I would accentuate the first few notes because of the rinse forzando and the way we start this. It's a lot more interesting to go, it's a lot less interesting, let's say, to go than to go that sort of thing. That's a fun piece. Going down, I found a slight push forward on 5 and following through with the wheel helpful. This is in relation to the Chopin etude, Mike. Okay, last question from Serpin. Hi, Serpin. I started playing piano 9 months ago, but I'm very bored with beginner pieces. I want to be able to play sonatas, of course. Is it way too early for that to happen? Would you recommend any etudes? Well, yeah, that really depends exactly where you are. Let's see, 9 months ago. You know, some people learn very quickly in 9 months. But I would ask you, I'd be curious how much you practice. If you're like really into it, if you practice every day or almost every day. If you're someone who practices like, 2 hours a day or like every here and there half an hour, or not really, you just like kind of sight read things for your lesson. Because, yeah, beginner pieces. Well, why not take sonatinas, like Clementi, for example. Clementi wrote a whole book of sonatinas, and the first one is quite easy, and it's very nice. Something like that. So that's a very nice piece. And then there's many others that get progressively harder, but that might be a good place to start. There's another composer called Hazel Cobb who wrote a bunch of sonatinas for beginners. So there's a good chance that maybe your beginner pieces are also a little boring just because they're boring pieces. So there might be beginner pieces that are less boring and maybe a little more challenging for you. Again, it depends how much you practice and how advanced you are already after 9 months. 9 months sure isn't a lot of time. But again, like I said, if you practice a lot and you advance very quickly, maybe some of those sonatinas are things you could consider looking at. Hard to say. I haven't heard you play, so I don't know what level you're at, but that's what I would recommend. Almost 3 hours a day. Okay, that's a lot. So yeah, maybe have a look at that Clementi sonatina. They're like smaller sonatas. You could probably find that anywhere. You could just probably find the whole Clementi sonatinas on Amazon, probably an Alfred edition or something like that. And the other one is Hazel Cobb, Hazel Cobb, Cobb. I think there's 2 B's. Those are relatively easy sonatinas, so they're like small, simple sonatas, which are nicer to play than things you might find in like a method book or, pieces that you find really boring. Fur-Elise is playable for a 9-month adult pianist, isn't it? It depends, if we're talking about the simplified version of Fur-Elise. Sure, yeah, if you want to play Fur-Elise, play the simplified version. That, unless you hate that piece, not everyone wants to play it. But I think people usually like it. Well, guys, I got to run. This has been a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for asking all your questions. Next live stream is going to be Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's 3 p.m. on Saturday, I can't remember what day it is, but that's coming up in a few days. Today is Tuesday. So that will be also in the description. If you want to support the channel, come on Patreon, visit the Patreon page, and take care. Peace out. Adios.